I mean, obviously I'm hopelessly prejudiced because this is a project that I've been working on since 2005, and we're now less than a year to go. So it's taken quite a chunk out of my life. But I do think it's a very important project for Lincolnshire. I know, because I talk to visitors at the castle, that many of them are staying in rural Lincolnshire, out on the coast, and they're actually day tripping into Lincoln. So I think it would be a huge mistake to see this as this is just a Lincoln project. It's important for the whole of Lincolnshire. We are very keen that we will be moving visitors who've come to see where £22 million has been spent, as they undoubtedly will, that we move them out into Lincolnshire and actually make sure that they understand what a lot the county has to offer. As Mandy said, the project's called Lincoln Castle Revealed, and hence our sort of light shining through the door of our new logo. But I just want to sort of take you through, before we sort of go on to sort of the marketing and the effort that we have planned for 2015, just so that you've got a bit of an understanding of actually what we are doing. Now, the Heritage Skills Centre has actually been complete for, it was completed last year, but just in case you don't know about it, in the centre of the castle we had this very unprepossessing, car park and dumping ground, I think is the kindest thing you could say about it. Really not doing a medieval castle any favours at all. And we decided to build a Heritage Skills Centre, grass-roofed, very low-lying. It fits into the landscape very, very beautifully. It's a training facility in heritage skills. And we are running sort of day courses, but we also want to develop that. And I think that actually, as we get that developed, that then becomes short break territory too. A lot of people like to have a short break where they're actually learning a skill. So we are doing silversmithing courses and all manner of courses. And I think that can be both vocational, but it also can be leisure as well. Tying it in very closely with 1,000 Years of Traditional Crafts, which is, give it a quick plug, it's the end of May, beginning of June weekend this year. But it's kind of our public face and trying to sort of publicise the importance of heritage skills. And the importance of the event is that we don't want it to be just a kind of a sales opportunity. Everybody who comes has to be demonstrating. So it's very much about how to do it and actually raising the profile of heritage skills and how important it is that we're constantly passing those on. One of the things that we've just started doing at the Heritage Skills Centre, and it's a kind of pilot partnership with Doddington Hall, is that for the next 2 years we're going to be restoring their tapestries in the Skills Centre. This is, we got set up at the end of January, so very early days, training guides who, when visitors come round, they can be explained to them what is going on. And actually people love that behind the scenes, to actually see things happening, rather than perhaps a more sterile view of our heritage, is that you actually see these being worked on and can talk to them. But Lincoln Castle Revealed, the part of that project is just short of £20 million, and we were very fortunate to get 12 million from lottery. But it's a complete restoration of the castle walls and creating a wall walk circuit for the very first time. You've never been able to do a complete circuit, and the walls had got into the most appalling state. Opening up the Victorian prison, new home for Magna Carta, all to be ready for 2015 and its 800th anniversary. But new interpretation and actually a decent visitor infrastructure, because actually we know that we weren't offering a great experience at the castle. It needed to be so much better. So this is the South Curtain Wall and the Lucy Tower. You can, if you're approaching Lincoln from the south, you can now see it on the skyline. It's looking, this part of the work is complete. And you can see the sort of new wall walk, and not open to the public as yet, but just looking so much better and beginning to look like the quality visitor attraction that we want to create. And the observatory tower is also now complete, And it's always a bit of a worry when it did actually used to sway, so it's rather nice to actually see it actually restored and looking a bit sounder. This is actually an architect's model, and it shows you how you will get onto the walls in the future. There are two towers that are side by side, and one is a lift tower and one is a stair tower. And we will be able to create wheelchair access onto the medieval walls, which I think for a building that dates from 1068 is quite something. We can't create a 100% circuit for wheelchairs, but what we decided, because the levels change all the way around as you go, really quite dramatically, it just wasn't possible. So we decided that the thing to do was to create access for wheelchairs to the best views. And the best views, I think, from the East Curtain Wall, wonderful view of the west front of the cathedral, but also a great view back into the castle site, and also longer views looking down the Witham down to Boston. Top of the observatory tower, you can see Boston stump probably not today, but on a good day. Those two towers, if you notice, they're kind of stepped back from the wall, and you go across, when you get up there, across a little bridge to get onto the walls. And that's so that when you're walking across from the cathedral, you cannot see the lift tower peeping over the battlements. Years and years of thought have gone into the planning. In fact, it takes longer doing all the planning than the actual building. But we're very excited to be so close now. Magna Carta, we need a new home for it that sort of suits its sort of iconic status. And we are building this contemporary modern building, which we're sort of going underground to kind of steal some space. We've done a £500,000 archaeological dig, wonderful finds and a lot of new knowledge about the castle. Again, this is from the architect's model, as if you're on the observatory tower looking down into one of our prison exercise yards, and you can see how the building has so cleverly slotted in. You'll walk across a causeway. On the right-hand side, you've got the Georgian debtors' prison. On the left-hand side, the Victorian male prison, female wing. And there's a corridor that joins them. You'll come out of that door, walk across this causeway to the new Magna Carta building, and then you'll immediately go underground, either stairs or a lift, and there will be the vault and a cinema space. That was January, just sort of showing how we're inserting it. It's a difficult site. Medieval walls and gates were designed to repel, and they don't like. You can't get a concrete lorry in, basically. So it's challenging. This shows you the Magna Carta vault, the cinema space, which will be a 180-degree screen, floor to ceiling, that surrounds you. It's a very kind of enveloping experience, and we'll be telling the stories about Magna Carta and its sort of 800-year life. As you come in to the building, you will see this great wall with a translation of Magna Carta with the main clauses picked out in gold. And the vault, not a huge vault because Magna Carta is really quite little, so there's no point having a huge vault because there is a limit to the number of people who can kind of crowd round it. There were three cases: Magna Carta, its sister document, which is Charter of the Forest, which is 1217, and then a third case is for a guest document, and that will change periodically. So we've always got something new to show people, and we've got offers of some wonderful loans. Next year we'll have the death warrant of Charles I. We're having a 1225 Magna Carta next year. So it's, there will always be, for repeat visitors, there will be, we can always sell those things as kind of for a limited period only, which is always quite helpful. I mentioned about a £500,000 dig that we did so that we could fit in our building, and archaeology is actually, we've had huge PR internationally for our finds, which in actual fact has made what we have spent really seem quite worthwhile. because people are, I think programs like Time Team, what have you, have created a great interest. I've just put one or two slides in just to sort of show the kind of range of, these are Roman tesserae, and I'm assured that the picture on the right is a 10th century ice skate. I'm not always 100% convinced, but what do I know? And then I haven't seen, there's a Roman enamelled brooch on the left. It's now been cleaned up. I haven't seen it yet. And those little things on the right are lace shapes. The little bits on the end of your shoelaces, all tiny but beautifully engraved. I'm very fond of my dice. We did find a medieval stables during the dig. And it was clearly a bit of a gambling den, as we found a whole series of these little dice, and they are little. You could fit all 7 of those dice onto a pound coin and still have a bit of space left over. They are very tiny, but very sweet. We found, an Elizabethan shilling, and the stone on the right is a sort of graffiti stone, and there were names of some prisoners scrawled on it, and we could only see sort of part of their names, but the Friends of Lincoln Castle got a database of all the prisoners that have ever been at the castle, were able to tell us, who they were and what happened to them. And I think that one of the things that we will be doing about the interpretation at the castle, it will all be story-based around people. We know about everybody who was at the castle, and I think it's a much more interesting way of telling history through real people and what happened to them. But our archaeology it's quite a range of, so Roman to 19th century, bit unrelated, but in a way it represents that layers and layers that we've been uncovering that we'll be able to tell that story. We did another dig where those 2 towers are going to be, and this is where at 3 metres we found a Saxon church which there was no knowledge of whatsoever. And this was at a depth of 3 metres. We found a number of bodies, or skeletons, but we also found a sarcophagus. Saxon sarcophagus are incredibly rare and unique to have found it in an undisturbed state. This is when we were having a look inside to see if actually there was something inside, and there was a skeleton. After months of work, we did eventually get him out. This was the moment when we took the lid off to find out that he was still wearing his boots. And again, that points to the fact that he was somebody of great importance. And he was actually only in his early 20s. This is him actually with the osteologist. So at the moment, we're going through that whole process of doing the DNA and on the 10 skeletons that came out of that Saxon church. But great stories beginning to emerge already about their lives and what we know about Saxon Lincolnshire. So we formerly had one room allocated to archaeology. There's no way we're going to fit it all in one room. So we've had to do a late redesign. And we now have 3 rooms within the prison allocated, so we can show that off. And we've also done a redesign on the courtyard. That shows you the causeway across to the Magna Carta building. It was going to be solid underneath. It looks like it's solid, but in actual fact we're roofing over the archaeology. So you'll be able to, in the sort of left-hand corner, you'll be able to go down steps. And we haven't thought of a name for what this area is going to be called, and we're still calling it the Grotto because it just sort of stuck among the design team. But people will be able to go down and see what we uncovered. And as I say, there's big interest for that. It just shows you some drawings of how it's going to look. That's back to looking at the main building, the Georgian debtors prison, which will have the main visitor infrastructure. So there'll be the shop, the cafe, the ticketing, new loos. There's a doorway to the side, which will be the school's entrance, because there will be school rooms on those top 2 floors, but they will have their complete own entrance, separate from everybody else, which I think when you have a big school group arrive, I think if you can kind of keep them separate, I think that's probably quite a good idea. Just a few examples of this kind of people approach that we're taking to our stories. So Lincoln Lives, these are bronze plaques that are dotted throughout the grounds, sort of telling the story of various people who are connected. So it could be from the very earliest times up to much more recent. This is a baby that was born at the castle and unfortunately died and was buried in the Lucy Tower. But again, it's just telling those stories of that long history of the castle. The Victorian male prison, it's one of those sort of buildings that doesn't need a lot of interpreting because it pretty much does, what it says on the tin. It has sort of great ambience inside. We will keep that space very kind of clean and simple. The interpretation will be in the cells, where we'll be able to dress a cell how it would have been, and as I say, tell the stories. We are filming 5 prisoner tales, so that when you go into a cell, you will see a little film about a particular prisoner. And we've tried to cover the kind of whole range of prisoners who were in Lincoln Castle. So men, women, and children, as in this example. The green background is it's filmed on green screen, so that you can cut it out and then sort of put it onto a different background. Hence, it won't be lurid green when you see it. This is another of the films, Lucy Buxton. A lot of the women who were in Lincoln Castle were in for infanticide, and there was this sort of understanding about, or developing understanding about poverty and family, huge families that really just couldn't cope. And the story of Lucy Buxton is a sort of particularly sort of poignant and interesting one, but actually very representative of women who were in Lincoln Castle. Joseph Ralph is a great story because he was our sort of serial escaper, and his. He did it on a number of occasions, but his best one was when he used his bread to make a mould for a key. He melted his mug down to pour it into the mould, and he did get away. Recaught in 10 days, but he was clearly a bit of a character. Little bathhouse under the north wall of the castle. It's been semi-derelict for as long as I can remember, but we have restored it. And it's going to be like a little studio unit. I put this photograph in because I love it so much. We actually lined the walls with sheep's wool before we put the lats and then plastered it. But from being a kind of cold and damp, it's now incredibly cosy. And this is what it looks like now. And we hope that we can let that to a use which is got some affinity with the Heritage Skills Centre. And I think it's good on a tourism attraction to have kind of have that working interest, and I think it makes for a sort of less sterile environment. Wanting to keep those stories going all the time about the work that we're doing, we have let 2 PR contracts. One to kind of draw journalists in the first place. We've been out in America these last week or so. Really good contacts with, the Washington Post, New York Times, Fodor's Guide, National Geographic, USA Today. We've done really well on that American market because Magna Carta is so important to them and they have such a strong knowledge of it. So it is a very good market for us. But we also need to handle, when there will be a lot of journalists coming in the early spring, and once we open, and we need to be able to handle those visits properly. And that contract will be handled by Chamber of Commerce and Visit Lincoln. And we know that journalists they will always want a different package to somebody else. So some will want to add on various other bits. So they've always got to be designed purely for that journalist and what they want. We've had Time Team. They came and filmed in the early stages of the archaeology. When we were lifting the sarcophagus, we made life extra difficult for ourselves by letting 2 film crews come and join us. And we had a very good piece on the One Show and also on the History Channel as a result of that. Robert Hardy, the actor, came to the university to record the text of Magna Carta. Great hearing somebody of that quality reading a document which is possibly a bit inaccessible, but read properly. Actually, I think when you do get to hear it, I think you'll agree that I'm going to say well worth it, because actually he didn't charge us anything to do it. But to hear somebody who knows how to read properly, my goodness, what an impact it has. And he did the opening and closing paragraphs in Latin, which sounded amazing. The actor Keith Barron has recorded the voice of the prison chaplain. He's a wonderful character, the chaplain. He was there for the whole life of the prison, 35 years, and we have 10,000 journal entries from him. Some of them are very funny, some of them are really quite poignant, and you get a sense of what life at the castle was actually really like. And Keith Barron did an amazing job just getting it just absolutely the right tone and absolutely spot on. I think we wanted the music to be local. The cathedral choir did we recorded them in the cathedral in 3D sound, but also in the prison chapel where they had to pretend to be prisoners. And one of the songs that they sang dated from the 13th century. So, the same time period as Magna Carta. A real little gem. Now, it's actually incredibly important that we get the marketing right and make sure that people know what has gone on, because we have spent a lot of money and we do not want to hide our light under a bushel. So it's important that you all know what the opportunities are for your business from the work we've done at the castle. We're doing a microsite from the castle website called Castle Connected, and it's about pushing people out into Lincolnshire. And what I've been saying to people is that those connections can be really very strong. So it might be a Civil War connection with other sites in Lincolnshire that have Civil War connections. We're developing a walking trail between Langton by Rugby and Lincoln. Archbishop Stephen Langton, who was instrumental in the whole Magna Carta story, was from Langton by Rugby. I don't know that he walked to Lincoln, but it's pretty likely that he did. We're developing a walking trail. We know how popular walking trails are, and it's another angle of getting the story across. I think that some of the connections might be more modern. They might be maybe more tenuous. Somebody said to me, what connection could I come up with for their attraction? And I did actually say that if you look on the prisoner database for the castle, most villages in Lincolnshire you can find somebody who was in Lincoln Castle. So it just kind of takes a bit of lateral thinking to think up some ideas, and I'm very happy for anybody to get in touch with anything that they think is a connection. So it could be pushing out into Lincoln, but pushing out further afield. So just for example, Samuel Wesley, who was John Wesley's father, he was imprisoned in Lincoln Castle. So there's the Methodist and Epworth connection. So it's amazing once you start thinking there is lots of connections to be made. Very important that we get our Lincolnshire audience knowing about this. I want them to feel as proud of what's been done at Lincoln Castle as I feel about it. But we need to get that message out. The regional audience, incredibly important to us. The transport networks, as was said earlier by Alice, and they are much, much better. And we need to make sure that we get those people visiting. Visit England have been incredibly supportive of what we're doing, and I think we have got a great offer. And in the 800th anniversary year, although there are 4 1215 Magna Carta, one's at Salisbury and 2 at the British Library, as well as ours, in a way, we're the only ones who've just spent £22 million on their castle, and with a kind of complete visitor infrastructure wrapped around Magna Carta. And I think we need to kind of make a big deal of that. Is none of the others can actually say that. You know, King John visited Lincoln Castle. We have got the full story. So I think, you know, make as much of, you know, Magna Carta and Lincoln Castle together, because it works really, really well. International audience, as I mentioned, very important, particularly the American market. But in actual fact, most Commonwealth countries can make a connect. You know, their constitutions have a can make a connection to Magna Carta. So you know, it is of international, all over the world, dimensions. The American Bar Association are intending bringing 800 people across for the anniversary. We need to be absolutely certain that they just don't stay at Runnymede and think that that is it. We need to be getting them out of London and the South East. So that's very, very important. In terms of the marketing, you know, we will be using traditional print and advertising, but also the PR, very important, and the digital solutions, very important. This is just a bit I mentioned about Castle Connections earlier, you know, and I shall be disappointed if you're not thinking of lots of connections, even as I'm speaking, and getting in touch. Another good connection actually is the aviation heritage, because of course it's the 70th anniversary of the end of the Second World War next year, and I think there's a great, you know, liberty, freedom connection between Magna Carta and the end of the Second World War, which I think is, you know, is very powerful, and that we should also make the most of. So for the rest of this year, it's an ongoing effort. The PR is, a lot of it is happening behind the scenes, but needless to say, they all want to visit when absolutely at the last minute. So it's going to be quite a logjam, and I don't want to go off too early with the marketing effort, because we are still shrouded in scaffolding, so timing is absolutely critical. I would like you to put September the 23rd this year in your diaries to come to Epic at the Lincolnshire Showground. We're calling the event Countdown to Lincoln Castle Revealed. It will be 6 months to go at that point. Presentations, workshops that you can sort of sign up to about what it might mean to your business, or if you want to know more about the research or the archaeology, please do come along. But being at Epic, we will have huge space to be able to cope with that. We will close the castle. We've stayed open throughout the works. It's been quite difficult, but we have stayed open. But we will close until April the 1st. All that cleaning and snagging and training the staff for the new equipment. But during that period, we will be inviting you, the tourist industry, to come in and have a look on specially invited visits, to act as guinea pigs. I hope be constructive in your comments, and help us while we're kind of learning to use the new equipment, but you having a chance to have a look and giving us some feedback and any suggestions. We're very gratefully received, and I hope you take that opportunity then to get the kind of first sneak previews of what the new castle, say new and castle together, it doesn't sound right, but what it's going to look like. So we will open April the 1st in our new reincarnated self. We will have an official opening probably after June the 15th, which is the actual anniversary. That will be when it actually came to Lincoln. We obviously are hoping for a royal to come and do that opening, but all the fixing of that is going on at the moment. But we want it to be a year of celebration for Lincolnshire. So it won't just be at the castle, it will be at other venues. One of the things that I think is actually going to be great for PR is Lincolnshire's Great Exhibition, which is part of that celebration at the collection, Usher, Wren Library, and also at the castle. Some of the items that we will have on display are once in a lifetime to be in Lincolnshire. They've all got Lincolnshire connections, but some really top quality items like the Luttrell Psalter. We're having the Heneage Jewel, which is from Lincolnshire. It's the most valuable jewel in the Victorian Albert. All sorts of amazing things. And these kind of short-term exhibitions, there was a big one in Norfolk last year, hugely popular because actually you can sell it on you've only got a very short time to see. It will never be gathered together again, so you can sort of do it as a must-see. Three Choirs Festival, Lincoln, Southwell and Peterborough. There'll be a conference at the university, a youth forum in July, Beating the Retreat, but again, coordinating with the aviation heritage, and we feel that we can work together. And the important thing, of course, is that we don't fall over each other. A lot of coordination going on behind the scenes. But these are the sort of key messages that I think, that I would like to take away about the project. Is this was a project that went ahead despite incredibly difficult economic climate. I remember projects were collapsing left, right and centre, and we carried on, turning a liability into an asset, which it is a Lincolnshire liability, it was a Lincolnshire liability, so it is important that we turn it into an asset for the county. It was always about it being a catalyst to tourism in Lincolnshire, and there will be too much to see in a day. And I think that's an important message. It's going to be a top quality visit. It will be the only place in the world where you can see Magna Carta and Charter of the Forest together. It has taken 10 years to achieve. That in itself, sort of shows our kind of Lincolnshire determination. And I think the fact, it's just such a great cause for celebration, seeing it look so, not quite there yet, but it is looking so much better. And reveal, even though the project was called Lincoln Castle Revealed, we've never actually said that when we've held the focus groups, but it's the one word that they actually pick up on. So that reveal word obviously has a real resonance. So everything that we've done, it's about reveal, and revealing stories or things we never knew about the castle before. So that's an incredibly important message. And I hope to see you at Countdown to Lincoln Castle Revealed in September, to come and have a look round in February and March time, and actually celebrate a great year for tourism in Lincolnshire in 2015. And thank you very much for listening.